Good evening, everyone, and welcome back to Paranoid Stories. Before we start, make sure to like and subscribe to the channel and leave a comment with where you're from and what time you're watching, so YouTube will keep showing you stories like this. Now, let's begin. I'd been driving through rural Pennsylvania for hours, the kind of back roads that twist like forgotten veins through hills too steep to farm and woods too thick to clear. My old pickup truck rattled along, the engine protesting every bump in the cracked asphalt. I was heading home from a job site up near Scranton, trying to shave time off the usual route. The interstate was clogged with weekend traffic, semis belching exhaust like dragons in the summer haze. So when I spotted the sign for a local shortcut, some winding county road that promised to cut through the Alleghenies, I figured, why not? But my phone had 0 bars out here, and the built-in nav was glitchy from years of neglect. That left the ancient GPS unit I dug out of the glove box, a relic from my dad's days trucking cross-country. It was bulky, with a cracked screen and a voice like a robot on its last battery. I punched in my destination, a small town just over the border in Ohio. The unit beeped to life, its synthetic monotone filling the cab. Proceed on current road for 2 miles, then turn left onto County Route 47. Simple enough. I followed, the sun dipping low enough to paint the trees in bloody oranges and reds. The road narrowed, gravel crunching under the tires, and the map on the screen showed a straight shot through what looked like nothing but forest. No towns, no gas stations, just green blotting out everything. About 20 minutes in, the voice changed. Not dramatically at first. It was subtle, like a crackle in the speaker. Turn right in 0.3 miles, it said, but the pitch lifted at the end, almost questioning. I glanced at the screen. No errors, just the arrow blinking insistently off the main path. The shortcut it suggested wasn't on the digital map anymore, but a faint line veered into denser woods, promising to reconnect farther ahead. Faster this way, the voice added unprompted, softer now, with a lilt that didn't belong to silicon and circuits. I shook my head, blaming the fading light or my exhaustion. The truck's headlights flicked on automatically as dusk settled, beams slicing through the gathering fog that rolled down from the hills like smoke from a dying fire. I took the turn anyway. Why not? The main road was a slog, and this path felt inviting somehow. The trees closed in tighter, branches scraping the roof like fingers testing a lock. My radio had long since dissolved into static, the only sound the hum of the engine and that voice. Good choice, it whispered next, the word drawing out, seductive in its hush. I gripped the wheel harder, knuckles whitening. Seductive? That was ridiculous. It was just a machine, programmed decades ago. But the tone had shifted fully now. No monotone, but a woman's voice, breathy and warm, like someone leaning close in the dark. Follow me, and you'll be home before the stars come out. I laughed it off, a nervous bark that echoed in the empty cab. Home was still hours away, even on this supposed shortcut. The road, if you could call it that, degenerated into dirt packed with ruts, the truck bouncing so hard my teeth clicked. The GPS screen flickered, showing a route that looped through places I'd never heard of. Hollow Bend, Whisper Hollow, names that sounded made up, like whispers from old folk tales my grandmother used to scare me with. Pennsylvania had its share of those. Stories of roads that led nowhere, of travelers vanishing into the mist. But that was kid stuff. I was 38, divorced, with a mortgage and a stack of bills. I didn't have time for ghost stories. Turn left at the old mill, the voice cooed. And there it was, a sagging structure half swallowed by vines, its wheel long rotted away. No signs marked this path, just a faint trail overgrown with weeds that whipped at the undercarriage. I hesitated, foot hovering over the brake. The map on my phone, when I'd had signal earlier, didn't show anything like this. But the voice persisted, intimate now, like a lover's murmur. Trust me. I know these roads better than you ever will. Just a little farther, and you'll see. Against my better judgment, I turned. The psychological pull was stronger than I wanted to admit. The promise of speed, of escaping this endless green maze. But doubt crept in with the shadows. What if this was leading me deeper into nowhere? My headlights caught glimpses of the impossible. A deer standing too still in the brush, its eyes reflecting back not fear but curiosity, like it was watching me go. The air through the cracked window carried a scent of damp earth and something sweeter, like overripe fruit left to ferment. Hours blurred, or maybe it was minutes. Time felt slippery here, the sun refusing to set fully, hovering on the horizon in a perpetual twilight. The voice guided me through turns that defied logic. A hairpin left into a ravine that shouldn't exist, a straightaway that climbed a hill too sheer for any road. "You're doing so well," it purred, the words wrapping around my thoughts. "Don't look back, only forward with me." I caught myself talking to it, muttering questions under my breath. "Where the hell are we?" No answer. Just that chuckle, low and inviting, vibrating through the speakers. My mind raced ahead, piecing together excuses. Carbon monoxide from the old truck, exhaustion playing tricks. But deep down, I knew it was more. The forests whispered back, leaves rustling without wind, shapes shifting in the periphery that vanished when I turned. Psychological isolation. That's what this was. The backwoods closing in, amplifying every creak of the cab, every flicker of the dash lights. I'd read about delivery drivers going stir-crazy on long hauls, hearing voices in the static. But this voice knew things. "Slow down here. The bridge ahead is weak from the rains last spring." And sure enough, the wooden span groaned under the tires, planks splintering faintly but holding. By what felt like midnight, though the sky stayed that bruised purple, the route promised to reconnect with the interstate. Relief washed over me, mingled with annoying unease. The voice had grown bolder, interspersing directions with personal asides. "You look tired. Pull over if you need to rest. I'll keep watch." It was as if it could see me, sense the sweat beading on my forehead, the way my hands trembled on the wheel. I didn't pull over. Instead, I accelerated, chasing the end of this nightmare. The final turn led to a clearing, or what should have been one. The trees parted abruptly, revealing not highway lights but an endless stretch of fog-shrouded path, unmarked and unending. The GPS screen went blank, then lit up with a single line. "You're home now. Stay with me." The voice wasn't seductive anymore. It was hungry, a whisper that clawed at the edges of my sanity. No beep to recalculate, no map to orient. Just that voice looping in my head even as the speakers fell silent. I slammed on the brakes, the truck skidding to a halt on the muddy verge. Heart pounding, I ripped the GPS from its mount, cords dangling like veins. But as I hurled it out the window into the underbrush, the voice followed, not from the unit but from the air itself, echoing faintly from the trees. "Don't leave. We're just getting started." I drove back the way I came, blindly, until the path spat me out onto a familiar county road, the interstate signs gleaming like salvation. Dawn was breaking by then, the sun finally cresting, but the chill lingered in my bones. I ditched the truck at the first gas station, called a tow, and hitched the rest of the way home. That GPS, I never retrieved it, but sometimes late at night when the house is quiet and the world outside fades to black, I swear I hear it again. A soft, inviting murmur, promising shortcuts I know better than to take. I never thought hauling my uncle's stuff across state lines would turn into the kind of night that sticks with you. The kind where every shadow in your rearview mirror feels like it's watching back. Uncle Ray had passed 2 weeks ago. Heart attack, quick and quiet, they said. No drama, just him slumping over in his armchair with a half-empty beer on the side table. He'd lived alone in that cluttered house on the edge of town, the kind of place where the walls leaned in like they were tired of standing straight. I'd been the only family close enough to handle the cleanup, so there I was, 32 years old, squeezing what was left of his life into the back of a rented cargo van. It was mostly junk, faded photo albums, a rusted toolbox, stacks of yellowed newspapers, and those weird knickknacks he collected from flea markets. Porcelain figurines of birds that looked more like they were screaming than singing. I'd locked the back doors tight before hitting the road, not wanting anything to spill out during the 12-hour drive to the auction house in the city. Ray had always been a hoarder, the type who saw value in rust and rot. "Nothing's waste if you give it time," he'd say, his voice gravelly from years of chain smoking. I figured I'd sort it later, but for now the van smelled like dust and old leather, a faint reminder of him that made the miles drag on. By midnight, the highway had emptied out, just me and the hum of the engine cutting through the dark. I'd been pushing hard, coffee sloshing in a thermos beside me, eyes burning from the glare of oncoming lights. The GPS said another 4 hours to go, but my tank was dipping low, so I pulled off at the next exit for gas. It was one of those rundown stations, the kind lit by a single buzzing fluorescent sign, pumps shadowed by overgrown weeds. No attendants, just a self-serve setup and a vending machine that looked like it had been there since the 80s. I killed the engine and stepped out, the chill of the night air hitting me like a slap. My breath fogged in the pump's harsh light as I swiped my card and started filling up. That's when I heard it first, a soft thump from inside the van. I froze, nozzle in hand, glancing over my shoulder. The cargo area was a solid metal box, windows blacked out with privacy film Ray had insisted on slapping on years ago for his deliveries. Probably just something shifting, I told myself. The road had been bumpy, and I'd loaded in a hurry. Tools rattling, maybe a box tipping. I finished pumping and climbed back in, but as I turned the key, there it was again. Another thump, followed by what sounded like a lighter tap, rhythmic almost. I shook my head, cranking the radio for distraction. Static crackled through old rock tunes, drowning it out. Back on the highway, the taps faded into the background noise of tires on asphalt. I tried to focus on the road, but exhaustion was creeping in, my mind wandering to Ray. We'd never been close. He was my dad's estranged brother, the one who showed up at holidays with tall tales and empty promises. Last time I'd seen him, he'd been ranting about things people leave behind, eyes glassy like he was seeing ghosts in his living room. Heart attack took him before I could ask what he meant. Now here I was ferrying his ghosts across the state. 20 minutes later, it started up again. Tap, tap, tap. Not random this time, deliberate, like fingers drumming on wood. I turned the radio louder, but the sound cut through, steady from the back. I gripped the wheel tighter, glancing in the side mirror. Nothing but darkness behind the tinted glass. Come on, I muttered to myself. It's just the load settling. But doubt gnawed at me. I double-checked the locks. Everything was strapped down. Maybe a loose latch or the wind whistling through a crack. Yeah, that had to be it. The taps paused when I shifted in my seat, adjusting the AC vent. Coincidence, right? I accelerated a little, hoping the speed would shake it loose. But then, as I drummed my fingers on the wheel to stay awake, tap, tap, tap on the steering column, the response came immediately from behind. Tap, tap, tap. 3 knocks, sharp and even, mirroring mine exactly. My stomach dropped. I stopped tapping, breath catching in my throat. Silence stretched, thick and heavy. Then slower, 3 more knocks echoed through the van's frame like an answer to a question I hadn't asked. Heart pounding, I pulled over onto the shoulder, hazards flashing in the night. The highway was deserted, just the occasional semi-rumbling past. "Hello?" I called out, voice cracking a bit. Stupid, I know, yelling at boxes, but it felt real now, too insistent to ignore. No response. I sat there, engine idling, staring at the divider between cab and cargo. It was a thin metal wall, riveted shut, with a small vent grate near the floor. The knocks had come from somewhere low, like from the base of the boxes. Ray's face flashed in my mind, his crooked smile, the way he'd knock on tabletops when telling stories 3 times, like a ritual. For the ones who listen, he'd joke, but there was always something off in his eyes. I rubbed my temples, trying to shake the unease. It was late, I was tired, my brain was playing tricks. But when I leaned forward to fiddle with the radio again, the taps resumed. 3 slow ones, pausing, then 3 quick, matching my movements, responding, like something or someone was in there, aware, waiting. I grabbed my phone, flashlight app on, and twisted in my seat to peer through the grate. The beam caught dust motes swirling in stale air, illuminating stacks of cardboard and the glint of metal from his old toolbox. Nothing moved. No shapes, no shadows out of place. But the air felt heavier back there, carrying a faint metallic tang that turned my stomach. "This isn't happening," I whispered, more to convince myself. I climbed out, boots crunching on gravel, and circled to the rear doors. They were locked with a heavy padlock I'd clicked shut myself. I tugged on the handle, solid, unmoving. No give, no rattle. Inside again, I locked the cab doors, pulse racing. The knocks came once more as I settled back. 3 deliberate raps that vibrated through the seat, desperate almost, like a signal from someone trapped. Morse code? No, just knocks. 3, pause, 3. Like the old prison signal for, "Are you there?" I'd read about it once in some true crime book. But who? Ray was gone, cremated even. His ashes were in an urn on the passenger seat, for God's sake. I glanced at it, the plain ceramic vase catching the dashboard glow, empty trip otherwise. The idea hit me then, irrational but clawing. What if Ray had stashed something alive in there? A pet he'd forgotten to mention? No, he'd hated animals. Or worse, something he'd hidden, some secret from his reclusive life. The knocks sped up, insistent, as if urging me to turn around. I accelerated instead, merging back onto the highway, hands white-knuckled on the wheel. "Stop it," I said aloud, voice steadying. "It's the boxes. Vibration from the road." But they didn't stop. They adapted, slower when I slowed, pausing when I held still. Once, when I muttered a curse and slapped the dash in frustration, 3 sharp knocks answered immediately, echoing like mockery. Miles blurred by, the city lights finally smudging the horizon. My mind raced, piecing together fragments of Ray's life. The rumors from neighbors, odd hours, visitors who never came inside, packages he'd receive and lock away. "He kept things that shouldn't be kept," one woman had said at the funeral, her voice low. I'd laughed it off then, but now, with the van feeling smaller, more confined, doubt festered. What if it wasn't boxes? What if something had hitched a ride, something Ray had trapped back there, and now it was free enough to knock? By the time I reached the auction lot at dawn, the sun creeping up like a reluctant witness, the knocking had quieted to faint echoes, as if whatever it was knew we were close to release. I parked in the empty lot, hands trembling as I fumbled for the keys. The padlock clicked open and I swung the doors wide, morning light flooding the cargo area. Boxes sat undisturbed, labels in raised scrawl. The toolbox, the figurines, all just things. No movement, no sign of life. Relief washed over me, mixed with a hollow ache. I'd imagined it all, the fatigue and grief twisting sounds into signals. I unloaded methodically, piece by piece, until the van was empty. But as I turned to leave, a final sound stopped me. 3 soft knocks from inside the now vacant back, hollow against the metal walls. No source, no echo, just the van, breathing its last secret. I slammed the doors shut and walked away, the auction house looming like a grave. Ray's stuff would sell, scattered to strangers, but whatever he'd left behind, the real weight, it followed me out, tapping in the silence of my thoughts. I've always hated driving through New Jersey. Not the turnpike slog or the industrial sprawl around Newark. Those are just annoyances you grit your teeth through. No, it's the suburbs that get under my skin. Those endless stretches of cookie-cutter neighborhoods that seem to multiply like some kind of suburban virus. Row after row of split-level houses with vinyl siding in shades of beige and taupe, manicured lawns that look like they're stamped out by a machine, and streetlights that buzz faintly in the dusk. They make you feel like you're trapped in a simulation, looping through the same nowhere without ever really moving forward. That evening, I was heading west on Route 22, cutting through one of those bedroom communities to shave time off my trip back from a job interview in Edison. It was just after 7, the sun dipping low enough to turn everything a hazy orange. My car was a 2012 Honda Accord, silver, nothing special. I'd bought it used a couple years back because it was reliable and cheap on gas. As I merged onto a side street to bypass some construction, I started noticing the driveways. The first one didn't register right away. A silver Accord parked nose in, its taillights catching the fading light. I glanced at it in the rear view, thinking nothing of it. Plenty of people drive these things. But then the next house had one too. Exact same model, same dull silver finish, not a scratch or dent out of place. And the one after that? By the 4th or 5th, my stomach started to twist. I slowed down without meaning to, my foot easing off the accelerator as I scanned the curbs. Every driveway, every open garage, silver Accords lined up like soldiers. No variations, no Toyotas or Fords mixed in, just row after identical row of my car. I told myself it was a coincidence. Maybe this was one of those culty neighborhoods where everyone buys the same model for some HOA rule, like those stories you hear about gated communities enforcing uniformity down to the mailbox color. But that didn't sit right. New Jersey's full of quirky spots, sure, but this felt off, like the world had glitched. I pressed the gas harder, the engine humming as I picked up speed, turning onto what should have been a main artery leading out toward Somerville. The houses blurred past at first, but the cars didn't. They kept coming, parked in perfect alignment, their windshields reflecting the sunset like empty eyes. By now, sweat was beading on my forehead despite the AC blasting cold air. I cracked the window, letting in the warm evening breeze that carried the scent of fresh-cut grass and distant barbecue smoke. It should have been comforting, normal, but it only amplified the wrongness. These weren't just similar cars, they were identical, down to the factory hubcaps and the faint swirl of a parking lot ding on the driver's side door, the exact spot where I'd sideswiped a shopping cart last month. How could that be? I hadn't even gotten it fixed yet. My mind raced, trying to rationalize it. Mass delusion? Some kind of prank with a fleet of rentals? But who would go to that trouble in the middle of nowhere? The road curved gently and I followed it, expecting the suburbs to give way to farmland or a highway on-ramp. Instead, the landscape stretched on, unchanging. More houses, more driveways, more silver Accords. I must have covered 5 miles by then, maybe 10. But the GPS on my phone kept spinning. No signal, just a blue dot frozen in place. Panic started to creep in, that slow-building dread that makes your chest tight and your thoughts scatter. I slammed on the brakes at a stop sign, tires squealing softly against the asphalt, and idled there staring at the intersection. Straight ahead, more of the same. Left, identical. Right, the road looped back the way I'd come, lined with the same relentless pattern. I couldn't just sit there. With a deep breath, I turned right, figuring if I backtracked fast enough, I could find the construction detour and get the hell out. The engine revved as I pushed it, weaving through the quiet streets. Kids' bikes lay abandoned on sidewalks. No one out playing, no dogs barking, just an unnatural stillness broken only by the rhythmic click of my turn signal. House after house, the cars mocked me from their spots, silent and waiting. My hands gripped the wheel so hard my knuckles ached, and I started talking to myself, voice low and ragged in the empty car. This isn't real. It can't be. Just keep driving, find a gas station, ask for directions. But there were no gas stations, no corner stores, no corner anything. The sun sank lower, painting the sky in streaks of purple and red, and the streetlights flickered on one by one, casting long shadows that danced across the identical lawns. I tried the radio for distraction, static at first, then a burst of classic rock that warped into a garbled mess before cutting out. My phone was useless, battery draining as it searched for bars that never came. Hours seemed to pass, though my dashboard clock only ticked forward by minutes. Was it the same loop? Had I turned the wrong way? Desperation hit when I spotted a figure on a porch. A man in his 50s maybe, sitting in a lawn chair with a beer in hand. The house behind him had a silver Accord in the driveway, of course. I pulled over abruptly, the car jolting to a stop, and killed the engine. My heart pounded as I stepped out, the door creaking shut behind me. The air felt thicker here, heavy with the scent of damp earth from recent sprinklers. "Hey," I called, my voice steadier than I felt. "Sorry to bother you, but I think I'm lost. Every street looks the same around here." He looked up slowly, his face weathered and unreadable in the porch light's yellow glow. He was dressed in a plain polo shirt and khakis, like he'd just come from a backyard cookout that never happened. After a long pause, he nodded toward the road. "Keep driving. It'll end eventually." "End?" I've been circling for hours. All these cars, they're all the same as mine. Silver Accords. What's going on? Some kind of neighborhood thing? His eyes flicked to my car, then back to me, a faint smile tugging at his lips that didn't reach his eyes. "Yours?" He set the beer down with a soft clink on the armrest. "Funny, they all look the same to me. Just keep driving, friend. You'll get where you're going." I wanted to press him, demand answers, but something in his tone, the flat, rehearsed calm, sent a chill down my spine. It was like talking to an actor reading lines from a script he'd memorized 1,000 times. I muttered a thanks and backed away, sliding into my Accord with shaking hands. As I pulled away, I glanced in the rear view. He was still sitting there, unmoving, watching me go. And in his driveway, another silver Accord, waiting. I floored it then, the speedometer climbing past 60 on the residential streets. Branches whipped at the windows as I barreled through what should have been a parkway, but the trees gave way to more houses, more cars. My mind fractured under the strain, flashes of doubt, paranoia blooming like ink in water. Was I even in New Jersey anymore? Had I crossed some invisible line into a place where reality bent? The psychological weight pressed down, heavier than the endless drive. Every identical vehicle felt like a mirror reflecting my own insignificance, a reminder that I was just another duplicate in this monotonous hell. Hours blurred into what felt like a single, agonizing stretch, Fuel light blinked on, but gas stations never appeared. I rationed my speed, coasting when I could, but the suburbs persisted, unyielding. Dawn broke eventually, pale light filtering through the haze, illuminating yet another row of silver Accords gleaming like they'd been polished overnight. Exhaustion clawed at me, eyelids heavy, but I couldn't stop. Stopping meant accepting it. By midday, delirium set in. I imagined voices in the wind rushing past the windows, whispers urging me to turn around, to join the rows. My reflection in the sun visor looked hollow, eyes bloodshot, stubble darkening my jaw. How long had it been? A day? 2? Time lost meaning in the loop. I tried to focus on small details to stay grounded. The faint hum of the tires on pavement, the way the air conditioner wheezed when I cranked it higher. But even those comforts mocked me, identical to every other car I passed. Finally, as the sun climbed high and beat down mercilessly, I saw a break, or thought I did. The road widened, curving toward what looked like an overpass, a promise of highway beyond. Hope surged, sharp and painful. I gunned the engine, weaving past the last cluster of houses, but as I crested the rise, the overpass revealed itself. Not an escape, but a bridge over the same suburban sprawl, looping back into the grid. More driveways, more silver Accords, stretching into infinity. I pulled over then, not caring about the shoulder crumbling under my tires. The engine ticked as it cooled, and I sat there, forehead against the steering wheel, the weight of it all crashing down. This wasn't a neighborhood. It was a cage, tailored to me, trapping me in the banality of my own life. Every car a version of mine, every house an echo of normalcy. I could drive forever and never leave. And as the first distant street light flickered on in the approaching twilight, impossibly soon after noon, I realized the truth. I wasn't trying to escape anymore. Part of me, the exhausted, broken part, almost wanted to park in one of those driveways, to sit on a porch with a beer and wait for the next silver Accord to roll by. Just keep driving, it'll end eventually. But it never would. I remember that night like it was etched into my skull, every detail sharp enough to cut. I'd been driving for hours, heading back from a late shift at the warehouse in the next county over. It was one of those jobs that paid just enough to keep the lights on, but left you bone-tired and staring at the road ahead like it was the only thing holding your life together. The interstate stretched out dark and endless, flanked by thick woods that swallowed the edges of the world. No streetlights out there, just the occasional reflector post glowing faintly in my headlights. The storm hit without mercy right around midnight. 1 minute, the sky was a bruised purple, spitting scattered drops. The next, it unleashed hell. Rain hammered the windshield like 1,000 fists, turning the glass into a blurred sheet of water. My wipers were on full, slapping back and forth, but they couldn't keep up. The noise filled the car, a relentless roar that drowned out the radio static and even the hum of the engine. I gripped the wheel tighter, my knuckles aching, squinting through the deluge. Visibility was down to maybe 20 feet, and the road felt like it was dissolving under the tires. I wasn't panicking yet, not exactly. I'd driven in bad weather before, but the lightning was getting vicious. Jagged forks splitting the sky every few seconds, illuminating the trees in stark white flashes. Thunder rolled in right after, deep and vibrating through the chassis. My old sedan wasn't built for this. It shuddered with every gust. Up ahead, the shoulder beckoned, a narrow strip of gravel edged by that impenetrable wall of forest. Better to pull over than risk hydroplaning into a ditch or worse. I eased off the gas, signaling even though there was no one around to see it, and guided the car onto the shoulder. The tires crunched over loose stones, then settled. I killed the engine to save gas, figuring I'd wait it out. The rain intensified, pounding the roof like it wanted to cave it in. Inside the car it was warmer, but the humidity seeped through the seals, making everything feel clammy. I leaned back, rubbing my eyes, trying to shake the exhaustion. My phone was in the cup holder, screen dark. No point checking for signal. Out here it was a dead zone half the time anyway. Minutes dragged by. Maybe 10, maybe 20. I lost track. The storm showed no signs of letting up. The noise was oppressive, isolating me in this metal cocoon. I started to feel that itch, the one that comes when you're alone too long with your thoughts. Work had been hell that week. Endless pallets, a foreman writing me about quotas, and Sarah's voicemail from earlier, cool and distant, saying we needed to talk about us. Yeah, that kind of night. I wasn't in the mood to dwell on it. A flash of lightning lit up the cabin, and in that split second something caught my eye outside the passenger window. The trees, maybe? No, that didn't feel right. I sat up straighter, heart picking up a notch. The rain blurred everything, but the headlights were still on, casting two pale beams into the downpour just beyond the hood. I hadn't turned them off. Habit, I guess. They cut through the sheets of water, illuminating the wet asphalt and the edge of the woods. I fumbled for my phone, thumbing on the flashlight. The beam was narrower, brighter, piercing the chaos. I swept it toward the window, angling it carefully to avoid the glare on the glass. That's when I saw them. 3 figures, standing just at the perimeter where the headlights faded into shadow. They were tall, unnaturally so, like they'd been stretched out by some cruel hand. 7 feet, maybe more, their forms gaunt and elongated, limbs too long, torsos too narrow. They didn't move, not an inch, rooted there in the storm as if it were a mild drizzle. Rain poured down around them, but it didn't touch them. No water beaded on their skin or clothes. They were dry, pristine, like the weather bent away at their presence. My breath caught, fogging the window for a second. I wiped it clear with my sleeve, heart thudding now, loud in my ears. They were facing the car, heads tilted slightly forward, staring right at me. Even through the rain-streaked glass, I could feel it, their gaze locked on, unblinking. What the hell were they? Hikers? No, not out here, not at midnight in this torrent. Trespassers? Their outlines were wrong, too skeletal, clothes hanging loose like rags on wire frames. Faces. I couldn't make out faces clearly, just pale smudges where eyes should be fixed and intent. I told myself it was a trick of the light, fatigue playing games. I'd read about stuff like this. Sleep deprivation hallucinations, shadows in the storm. But they didn't flicker or dissolve. They just stood there, silent sentinels, the rain cascading untouched around their feet. The phone's beam trembled in my hand. My arm was shaking. I killed it, plunging the interior into dimness, then flicked it back on. Still there, motionless. Panic clawed up my throat. What do you do in a situation like this? Drive away? The road was a river now, and my tires were shot for anything slick. Call for help? I glanced at the phone. No bars, just the emergency dialer taunting me. It rang once, twice, then cut to static, swallowed by the thunder. I muttered a curse, slamming my palm on the dash. Think, damn it. Maybe they were lost, hurt, needed assistance. Yeah, right. In this weather? And why weren't they soaked? I leaned closer to the window, straining to see details. Their postures were rigid, almost posed, like mannequins forgotten in the woods. No umbrellas, no rain gear, just those thin, elongated shapes. One shifted, or maybe I imagined it, a subtle tilt of the head, as if acknowledging my stare. My skin prickled, a cold sweat breaking out despite the humid air. They weren't animals. Too upright, too deliberate. People? God, I hope not. Something about their stillness screamed wrongness, like they'd been waiting there all along for someone like me to stop. The storm raged on, the roar masking any sound they might make. Were they whispering? No, that was my mind filling in blanks. I gripped the keys in the ignition, turning them. The engine coughed to life, headlights flaring brighter. For a heartbeat, the beams washed over the nearest one, highlighting its form. Thin arms hung at its sides, fingers elongated, almost claw-like, but not quite. Its face, pale, hollow-cheeked, eyes dark pits that seemed to absorb the light, staring, always staring. I threw the car into drive, foot hovering over the gas. Just go, floor it, get back on the interstate, put miles between us. But as I eased forward, gravel crunching, they didn't react. No waving, no approach, just that unwavering watch. The car lurched onto the pavement, tires slipping for a second in the standing water. I gunned it, the engine whining, rain lashing the sides like punishment. In the rear-view mirror, they receded, swallowed by the woods. But I swear they turned as one, tracking my taillights. The road curved and they were gone. But the feeling lingered, a weight on my chest, like eyes still boring into my back. I drove faster than I should, weaving through the spray, pulse hammering. No more stops, no looking back. By the time I hit the state line, the rain had eased to a drizzle, the sky lightening to a sickly gray. I pulled into the first gas station, hands still trembling as I filled the tank. The attendant, a grizzled guy with a name tag reading Earl, eyed me funny when I asked if he'd heard about any weirdos on the interstate. "Storm brings out all kinds," he grunted, but his voice lacked conviction. I didn't press. That was 3 months ago. I don't drive that stretch anymore. Took a different route to work, even if it adds an hour. Nights like this, when thunder rumbles in the distance, I check the windows twice. Phone flashlight ready. Sarah and I are done. She said I seemed distant, haunted even. She's not wrong. Sometimes in the quiet before sleep, I wonder if they were real. Hallucinations don't stare back like that, don't make the air feel thick with expectation. Last week I found an old Reddit thread about sightings on that interstate. Tall figures in the woods, untouched by rain. Comments dismissed it as urban legend, but one user, anonymous, posted coordinates that matched my pull-off spot. They wait for the storm, it said, and they remember. I closed the app, heart sinking. Maybe it's nothing. Maybe I'm just tired. But I keep the keys close at night, listening for the rain.